Hi, this is John with Dracast, and today what I want to talk about is our new Dracast production studio. So behind me, you'll notice a big green screen wall. And what myself and a few of the guys here at Dracast did was we built this studio over the last month and a half or so. And today what I want to do is just talk about the building process and some of the do's and don'ts and some of the techniques that we used in building this studio. Because, you know, we're not professional studio builders, and so if you are thinking of building your own production facility or your own studio, maybe you can avoid some of the mistakes that we made in figuring this out as we went. So first I want to go over the materials that we used. What you see behind me is a 12-foot high wall. We built the wall using just a simple 2x4 frame that got bolted down into the concrete floor underneath and then attached to the walls on either side of the room. Then we just framed it up and put drywall on it, so simple 4x8 sheets of drywall. And on the seams, we used mud and tape on all the seams there. There's no texture on this wall. You want your wall to be as smooth as possible. So don't use any sort of texture when you're doing your wall or anything like that. If you've ever worked with green screen material, you know one of the worst things to work with is when the green screen is wrinkly. And that's what we use to use, and so the smoother your wall, the less correction you're going to have to do in post. So again, yeah, smooth wall, just paint on the drywall, primer on the drywall, and mud and tape, and get rid of all the bumps and wrinkles you can. The second thing I want to talk about is the paint that we selected. The shade of green isn't any special shade, actually. I'm sure if you go on Google or Amazon or something, you can find green screen green, but that's not what we used. We just went to Home Depot and we picked out a color swatch that kind of looked like a green screen, and we said, here, make it. And we just used about 5 gallons or so and painted up all 12 feet across 20 and then down out onto the floor here about halfway across our room. We put green all over the floor. If you're doing this and you do a green floor, just keep in mind that you're going to need to touch it up very, very often. This studio is about a month old, and in that short amount of time, we have shoe scuffs and nicks in the paint and all sorts of stuff like that. So you're going to need to clean it. You're going to need to repaint it. That floor paint's going to require a lot of upkeep, so just make sure you have some extra around. Again, we used a very flat paint. We used a very flat paint because we wanted the paint to drink up as much of the light as possible, right? So any sort of gloss, any sort of reflective surface is going to cause something called green spill or color spill, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. But in order to avoid that, we used a very flat paint. And you know, what you end up with is just one nice even shade of green across your entire wall. Lastly, with the construction of our green screen studio, what we built is called a cyc wall. And so behind me, what should be in the shot here is the corner of the wall hitting the floor. But it's not, because we built something called a cyc wall, which is where the wall curves down. It curves down to the floor in a very even slope, really a lot like a skateboard ramp, right? So we built one of those, and there are a lot of YouTube tutorial videos on how to properly build a cyc wall with very little you know, time or materials or money. But we did ours pretty simply using a video that we saw on YouTube where you use plywood and 2x4s to frame up your cyc wall, and then just a little bit of MDF board gets laid over the top of it, and you have a beautifully functioning cyc wall. So that's what we did. And again, you could find plenty of tutorial videos on YouTube that'll show you how to do this very simply. All right, next I want to talk about our lighting in this room. So at Dracast here, we manufacture lights. So we had plenty of materials at our disposal to make sure that our lighting was done well in this studio. So the first thing you're going to want to do if you are lighting a green screen is just be aware of the fact that you're doing 2 different lighting setups. In this situation, you're lighting the wall, and you're also lighting the subject. So what we have is a lighting bank that is set up just to light up the wall. So let's show you that really quick. So this is our wall lighting, and the way we've done it is right over the wall we have 4 LED 2000s that are aimed crossing each other. And what this does is it allows you to spread out the light as much as possible without losing light by using diffusion to accomplish the same thing. We have 6 LED 2000s that are about 10 feet away from the wall to fill in any gaps left by the 4 on the top of the wall, and what we get here is a pretty even light across the entire 20-foot green screen. So next what we have is a subject lighting. So what we have is a number of LED 2000s that are all up on the lighting grid that we built. And they're just aimed in a number of positions, key positions, fill positions around the room. And they're on different channels on the DMX board so that we can have different subject lighting at different angles if we want to. So again, we have 2 different banks going on here. We have the subject bank of lights out in front, and we have the wall, the green screen lights behind me and above me. Now, in any shoot that we do, normally we'll need additional lighting as well. You know, maybe we'll need a little bit more. And what we do for that is we put a light on a light stand and bring in portable lighting. But for fixed studio lighting in here, I think we're using a total of 16 LED 2000s. Now, granted, we have a very large green screen in here. It's a very big space to light up. So 16 does the trick quite nicely. You may need more, you may need less. So a couple other techniques to talk about when you're building your green screen to be aware of is use enough distance from your subject to the wall where you're going to avoid a lot of green spill. What's inevitably going to happen when you have a lot of light bouncing off of any colored surface is you're going to get a lot of bounce back. And what can happen is it can color your subject. And if you've worked in post-production at all before, you know that any amount of green spill can really be a pain to work with. So a good rule of thumb to try and use is just stay around 8 feet away from your back wall. You're still going to get some amount of green spill, but it'll be a lot more manageable than if you're standing way back closer against your wall like this. And now, all of a sudden, when you go into post, you're going to have to erase a whole lot of green off of your subject, and it's going to be a lot harder for your editor to manage. In this case, if you can come out about 8 feet away from your wall, you can still get some great shots, especially if you have a green floor like this, and you won't have to do as much correcting in post. So again, this is John with Dracast up in San Jose, California. Make sure to check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.